That's very funny. That's very funny. It's very, very funny. That's
very. Hey, Lewis, you made a joke that made Ben laugh.
I've made him laugh more than once.
That was funny.
Ben, you need to turn your phone off.
I'm turning it off. That's what I'm in the process of doing, sir.
Last time I saw McCord was on YouTube in ecclesiastic robes.
Well, God bless him. If it makes him happy, if it brings him peace, God bless you. God bless him. I think it's wonderful. God bless him.
At the time, he looked like he was the host at the House of Blues Sunday brunch.
Oh, there is no more House of Blues.
I know.
I'll turn that light on.
We've also lost Hamburger Hamlet.
And we also, most horrible of all, we lost Morton's, the best restaurant in the world. Morton's the best restaurant in the world.
It didn't have the greatest food.
No, it didn't have the greatest food, but it was the greatest atmosphere in the world.
There's a booth reserved for us.
Third, shining right in my eyes, sir. Shining right in my eyes, sir.
It still is?
Yes, sir. It's now not as much, but it's uncomfortable. Let's try it. Turn it off and see how it goes. It's still shining right in my eyes. There, that's much better. Okay. You're right. I'm in shadow. You better put it back. You better put it back on. You're right.
You know what place I miss?
What?
Okay, we're getting ready to start, Lewis, and we're live on Facebook. So.
Well, what?
Kate Manalini.
Oh, I never went to that.
You see, Ben wasn't a big fan of Kate Manalini's, and I loved Kate Manalini's.
No matter what you ordered, check was always $70.
And there's the famous story of Kate Manalini that it was his mistress.
Yes.
Supposedly.
Right.
Yes.
You guys ready to start?
Whose mistress?
The owner of
Lewis's.
The owner of Kate Manalini.
Okay, well, God bless him. We love it. Morton's, that was the rock. Morton's was the center of the world.
Okay, are you ready, Ben?
Yes.
Hold on. You broke up a little bit there.
Really?
Judah.
Okay.
No, you're fine, Ben. Judah, your audio was a little,
I broke up?
Yeah, a little weird there.
Am I good now?
I think so. All right.
God bless you, gentlemen.
Okay.
God bless you. God bless you. God bless you.
Welcome back.
Well, welcome back to you too, sir. Welcome back to you, sir.
Welcome back to you. And welcome back to The World According to Ben Stein. I'm your host, Judah Friedman. This is our fourth streaming episode, and we're thrilled to have you.
Well, we're thrilled to be here.
Follow us on Parler at Ben Stein. Subscribe to the podcast on YouTube at World According to Ben Stein. Please tell your friends, your family, your significant other, or others. Please tell your acquaintances. Please tell your enemies. Joining us, as always, is the other Ben Boychuk of American Greatness, the finest managing editor from Albuquerque to Big Bear. Hello, Ben.
Hello. What a delight.
Hello, Ben.
Hello, Ben.
And of course, the incomparable, esoteric,
incomparable also works.
Incomparable too, and the incontinent Lewis Henry Fine. Hello, Lewis.
God bless you, Lewis. God bless you. What is that insignia on your hat? I've been wondering about that for some time.
This is part of an elite Talmudic organization founded by a one Ralph Lifshitz, to which I am a member in good standing.
Ralph Lifshitz named Lauren?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. God bless him.
But it's pronounced Lifshitz.
And on that note, finally, the man of the hour, writer, actor, economist, and America's humble servant, Benjamin Jeremy Stein.
God bless you all.
And who wanted this topic more than anything. So I will start this with, as a 44-year-old, my introduction, I think many people's introduction to the 60s or anything is through music. And I will just recite a line from a song. Bought my first real 6-string, bought it at the 5 and dime, played until my fingers bled, was the summer of 69. And Ben, I want you to tell us what the summer of 69 was like and what the 60s were like.
60s were great. Their 60s were fun. For me, they were coming of age in a nuclear explosion, as Mr. Bush would say. I started out as a shy nerd with no girlfriend and ended with an incredibly beautiful wife, and who is still my wife, and in between had a string of beautiful girls. And to me, that's what life is all about. I also started out as a what should I say, Latin scholar at a high school that still taught Latin, in which Latin was a very important subject, and wound up as by 1970 and the 60s. At one, you might say, or you might count it differently. I was a fairly well-known young economist, following in the footsteps of my father, a very well-known older or middle-aged at that point middle-aged economist, and had wonderful fun times at Yale, demonstrating against the pig power structure and having lots and lots of fun being part of the pig power structure. That's when you really have a very good hand at bridge, when you're a part of the pig power structure, have all the benefits of being part of the pig power structure, but also get to demonstrate against it, get all the benefits of being a demonstrator against the pig power structure. Plus, I got to be in a great fraternity, almost all Gentiles, made it really, really great, because the Jewish fraternity that I was sort of naturally drawn to, ZBT, had very aggressive, tough, bragging people in it. And I was in a fraternity of modest, shy prep school boys. And gosh, we had a lot of fun. Fun. We had parties, black tie parties every other weekend. We would sometimes go down to 21 or the Stork Club after the parties. This was at Columbia. We had a lot of fun. And also within a few months of that, I was demonstrating against the war in Vietnam and having even more fun. It was just one nonstop party.
Which brings up a big dichotomy, Ben. While a lot of people were having fun, there were people in Vietnam.
Yes, exactly. Well, you bet. You bet. A dichotomy is putting it mildly. Yeah, it was outrageous how well we were treated and the crap we got away with, while our brothers and sisters were fighting against the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese and having horrible things happen to them. It was unbelievable. The dichotomy is, putting it very mildly. I mean, it was insane how privileged our lives were compared with the lives of people who were fighting in Vietnam. Absolutely insane.
Was there guilt?
Yeah, but we loved it.
Was there guilt?
At the time, no. Now, very much so. My wifey and I actually had some authority to demonstrate against the war in Vietnam, because her father was a distinguished colonel in the U.S. Army, winner of or awardee, I should say, of the Silver Star, the Bronze Star, and the Distinguished Service Medal, which is not the same as the Distinguished Service Cross, but it's still a high medal. And he had just come back from a year in Vietnam, and he said, please demonstrate all you can to end this war. It is a bloodbath. It is an absolute meat grinder. We're never going to win. And people just go there and get killed, and we don't accomplish anything. Please do whatever you can to end it.
So one more question before I get to the panel, but you also had Kent State over here. You had
Tin soldiers and Nixon's coming. We're finally on our own.
Right. So
I hear them coming. 4 dead in Ohio.
It wasn't exactly the, like you said, dichotomy isn't a big enough word. So Ben Boychuk, what are your thoughts on the 60s, or questions you have for Ben?
Well, yeah, I want to throw something at you and see if you agree or disagree with me. I don't think that when we talk about the 60s, we're not talking about, a chronological decade. I think we're talking about cultural and political phenomena.
Absolutely.
So really the 60s, as we understand them, I would contend, began with the assassination of John F. Kennedy and ended roughly summer of 1973. What do you think?
Why do you think it ended in December of 73?
Well, because I think because the cultural upheaval of that began really in the latter part of the decade, the late 60s, culminated with the days of rage and the domestic terrorism of the very early 1970s, like 70, 71, and just 72. And I think it kind of came to an end with Watergate. Really?
End of the draft.
That's
And
an
the end of the
interesting thought,
draft.
interesting thought. And I think to a large extent, the general frustration about the war in Vietnam and all the losses for no gain that was there was a pent up anger, and the media directed it towards Richard Nixon. And yet Nixon was the one who ended the war, and although not as successfully as he would have wanted to, and all the spite that had been built up during the war was poured out on his head. So there's something to that. I certainly would say that the real peak for me of 60s living was in the early 70s, when it was really just party hardy all the time, and the soldiers were coming home, and the prisoners of war were coming home. So at that time, we really did feel like party hardy. I mean, we felt great.
Ben, you need to move up a little bit.
It was great. There's a saying, and I think I have given it to Judah, my dear friend Judah, from Wordsworth, about what it was like to be a young person in England during the French Revolution. And he wrote, and probably Lewis is going to know the whole poem by heart. Bliss it was in that dawn to be alive, but to be young was very heaven. And I feel as if having the privilege of being young, fair at an incredibly coddled, wonderful school, 2 of them, and with money to burn, and nothing like what I burn now. I'm rapidly burning myself out. Well, it was unbelievably great. It was unbelievable.
What was your father, though, as he was working at the White House, or this is pre him? What was your father's thought? Because I posted that picture of you and your wife, of Alex, and what was your father thinking as you had that hair? And
I don't know. He never complained about my hair. I showed up one day at their house. It was when I was working as a lawyer in Washington, D.C. By the way, the world's worst job. But anyway, I showed up at at my parents' house for dinner, very high on cocaine, and they didn't have any idea that I was cocaine, but they did say that I was acting a little strangely.
Okay, so now I'm going to get to Lewis, because Lewis and one of our favorite books, and everybody that's listening, buy this book. It is one of Ben Stein's best books. It's a book called Ludes, and which was made into a movie called The Boost.
Right.
Lewis, ask him a few questions about Ludes, because I think that does involve the 60s a little bit.
Thanks for the heads up. Here's my question. What was it like?
Finally, a joke that's funny. Okay, go ahead.
What was it like to pass as a Gentile?
I didn't pass as a Gentile. They liked me as a Jew. I didn't try to pass as a Gentile. Look at this nose, my friend. Do you think anyone would possibly think I was a Gentile? No. I was a Jew, and but I was in a Gentile fraternity, and they were very, very nice to me, extremely nice. And we had such a great time. I'm still in close touch with the fellow who was the president of the fraternity, who after he went to college, went off to Vietnam and was a lieutenant in the Marine Corps and saw some very grisly combat. And still, we talk about people in the fraternity. That fraternity, which was called Alpha Delta Phi, was so great. It was unbelievably great. And I was not passing for a Gentile, but I loved being amongst these Gentiles. And they were just incredibly wonderful people, incredibly wonderful.
Well, I have a law degree like you do. Now, I didn't do
Is it
drugs.
the same as my law degree? Does it have my name on it?
No, it's of equal value in case of emergency.
No, but
in the next
just
2
on
weeks.
a side note, Lewis, just on a side note, there are 2 people that have claimed to have had Ben's law degree. I don't want to say law degree, Ben, but there are 2 people in Hollywood that have claimed.
Yes, that's right.
Let's not mention their names.
That's very funny. That's very funny.
I just did a random story. 2 people in front of Ben brought up that they both went to Yale Law School. Ben asked them what year. They both said they were valedictorians of that year.
Of class of 1970. And I was, in fact, the valedictorian, not by grades. I was nowhere near high enough in my class, a very, very small class, to be valedictorian. But I was elected valedictorian because I was the most popular, because I took the most anti-faculty, anti-war, leftist stands. Changed a bit.
Sorry, Lewis, go ahead.
So my
Sorry,
question
Lewis.
now, I've never done drugs except prescription, and I haven't abused them. But what kind of drugs were you on to go to law school? Because of all the things I've done wrong in my life, those 3 years, which I can't get back, how high were you
That's very funny.
that you convinced yourself that that law school was
That
where
is
you
really,
needed
really
to be?
funny. Well, when I was a senior in college, or maybe beginning of my senior year in college, I remember sitting at my little cheap desk and thinking, what the hell am I going to do when I graduate? I could go to graduate school in economics and become an economist. I could go to graduate school in business and go into business, or I could go to law school, and then and I'm just told you can do almost anything with a law degree. I consulted with Milton Friedman, the great genius free market economist.
Just to throw out a name, yeah.
A very close family friend, Nobel Prize winner, stone solid genius. He said, don't go to business school. You don't learn anything there. But if you do go to Stanford, not to Harvard, because the climate is much better at Stanford. And then I consulted with my father, whose word I respected very much. And he said, if you become an economist, it's really easy, except for the mathematical part, which has gotten much more complicated since then. And but he said, you'll never earn much money doing that. If you become a lawyer, you at least have a chance of making a lot of money. Well, I like the idea of making a lot of money. My brother-in-law, a very successful lawyer on Wall Street, said, go to Yale if you get in, because it's a country club that never make you do any work, and it's really, really fun. He had gone to Harvard. He said, Harvard is really hard. Don't go to Harvard. So I went to Yale. I got into Yale, which was one of the great coups of my life. And the first year was very hard. Civil procedure itself was enough to make me crazy. And I started being medicated for anxiety. I was dating two different girls. There was a lot of conflict and complexity about that.
Ben, you need to lean in a lot. I'm sorry.
I beg your pardon. And I was given drugs for anxiety by the school clinic for students that wildly upset me and made me crazy. And I had to drop out of school. And I worked for a year as an economist at the Department of Commerce. Unbelievably easy work, but boring as hell. And I figured it'd be better to go back to law school and see if I could make it work a second time. By the time I got back, I entered in September of 66, dropped out in November of 66, came back in September of 67. It had totally changed. A hippie era was upon us. Everybody was in revolution. The strict teachers were gone, or if they were there, you brushed them out of your way, brushed them aside like they were lint. And we were all happy all the time. Teachers and students smoked dope together. It was a whole different world. It was just a completely different world. It was like what my brother-in-law had said it was going to be like. It finally was like that. Yale Law School from 1967 to 70 was one giant party. And I had incredibly great teachers. I had Bob Bork, who I think was the best teacher I ever had in law school. A really great teacher. Larry Simon, great teacher. Well, I won't say their names. What does it matter? They were incredibly.
They're all dead. Bickle?
No, they're not. No, Larry Simon is not dead. And,
Okay.
But they were great teachers. I learned a lot about how to think. My brother-in-law, a very, very smart guy, said Yale is the home of legal realism. Now, legal realism is something that every conservative should know about. Legal realism is a doctrine that judges do not actually make law according to legal precedents or what's in the statutes. They just decide what they want, and then they find some rationalization for it. And for example, they can decide what they want by who's got the best looking lawyer, or who's got the lawyer that belongs to the same club. Any reason, I can always find a line of cases to back them up, because any important case will have a line of cases on both sides to back them up. So that once he had explained to me that law meant nothing except the preferences, the thinly veiled preferences of judges, that explained everything, and explains everything about everything. Explains everything about the media, about politics. People just say their own opinions and views, and then they pretend that it's subjective.
Ben, so
Here's
I'm
well,
laughing
just
here-
a follow.
Ben, I'm laughing here because I'm reading some of the comments on YouTube, which two girls will give you anxiety.
Two was just the beginning.
Star Talks for You writes, I'd rather teachers and students smoke dope together than for teachers to indoctrinate kids.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Totally agree.
Well, about the 60s.
Yes, sir.
What was tuition?
I don't remember, but it might. It was very little, when I first entered, my parents just blithely wrote a check for it. But when I went back, I don't think they really believed I would stay back. They said I had to pay for it myself. And Yale was so good to me; they gave me a scholarship and very, very, very low interest rate loans, like 2% loans, and they were incredibly good to me, just unbelievably good to me. I mean, I can't even start to describe how good they were to me.
Ben Boychuk.
Oof. Well, I have a couple of questions, but maybe I'll get to I'll get to this one now, I think.
Go ahead.
So, Thomas Jefferson famously said that the earth belongs to the living and not to the dead.
Oh, very good. Very good. Very good. Very good. I've never heard that, but that's very good. That's very good.
Well, what I'm wondering, I want to get your thoughts on the cultural longevity of the 60s era.
Well, I think I'm sorry, go ahead. I beg your
Well,
pardon.
no,
I beg your pardon, sir.
We're just, it in a lot of ways, I mean, the cultural impact and the political impact is still with us, sometimes for good, but sometimes for ill. And I'm just wondering now, is it too much in your view? Does it hold too much cultural and political authority over the way we live now, some 60 years later? I mean, is it just too much?
I think the thing that was great about the 60s was all the drugs and sex. The thing that was wrong with it was it broke down authority, and it allowed students to question their teachers, and it allowed teachers to simply throw away standards and traditions of the Western society, and instead indoctrinate students with their own Bolshevik ideas. And the students cheered them on, and so the teachers did ever more of it. The 60s, I think, were a time when the revolution started coming screaming through the doors of the schools and indoctrinated the teachers and indoctrinated the students. And it was a time when it was a very, very importantly a time when racial barriers and racial oppression started to be broken down. But also with that, unfortunately, very, very unfortunately, came a huge torrent of drugs into the non-white community. And that was really a devastating disaster for the non-white community. And so that was a terribly sad part of the 60s. But I think I've told you before that I worked for Mr. Nixon's assistant for minority affairs. And at the time Mr. Nixon took office, a very large percent of Southern schools were still segregated. By the time he left, none or almost none were segregated. So that was a big breakthrough, supposedly. But what those newly integrated schools were like, I hate to think.
Ben, somebody has a question for you. They wonder, have you ever heard of David Baugh? And he was a champion of free speech.
David Baugh?
Baugh, B-A-U-G-H.
No, I never heard of him. God bless him.
Azure from Phoenix, they have never heard. But Ben Boychuk, continue, please.
Oh, so let me run this by you then. We just watched a week's worth of confirmation hearings for Amy Coney.
That woman's
Coney
a genius.
Yeah, she's quite impressive.
Yep, she's great.
But half the people on the committee, on the Senate Judiciary Committee, are well into their 70s and their 80s, and I'm just wondering, and I just wonder if there is maybe too much influence from the baby boomer generation. You being a baby boomer, you can speak to this directly.
I'm not. I'm a war baby. I was born during the war.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm older than war. I'm older than the baby boomers. I'm old, man. I'm old. Old.
Does that make you part of the silent generation, or?
Well, that's a very good question. That is a very good question.
You and Dan Wakefield.
It was a few years before me, but that was the silent generation. Our generation was the very noisy generation. Boy,
yeah,
we had a lot of fun being noisy. But I mean, that's the whole thing. The society turned to a society in which largely fun replaced work, and that's a serious problem. And I don't think work ever really got back its own for a very large part of the population. And lots of people I went to school with never really figured that they had to work, and always were trying to think of some scam or another to avoid having to work.
Oh, that's true.
And I think that politicians have given them money to do it.
Yeah. So do you think, all right, so you're not a boomer, so you can speak to the boomers. Do you think we just have too much boomer influence in politics and culture still?
I think we have an awful lot of boomer influence in politics and culture. I'd like to see some more silent generation influence. I'd like to see people saying, get to work, get to work. I mean, I'm an old man, I'm 75. I still work every day. And younger people that I know have given up working altogether. And a very large part of the population is voluntarily unemployed. And those who are at work are not really doing that. Often, not always, are not really doing that much work. So I'd say I'd like to see it more of an emphasis on work, more of an emphasis on work. I notice that the people who work are a lot happier than people who don't work. That's sort of general rule. We are all aiming for happiness, and I think, and maybe not, and we are happier if we work.
I'm a generation Xer, and I work like a bastard. I mean,
that's great. That's
I could use a break at some point, to be honest.
God bless you, sir. God bless you, sir.
I know Lewis wants to chime in, so go for it, Lewis.
Well, I speaking of work, I just made this.
What is that?
It's an iPhone. I made it while you guys were talking
God
about working. Why did your friend and my ex-girlfriend, Joan Didion?
Oh my God, she's your ex-girlfriend. She's a little old for you, isn't she?
Yeah, I liked them that way. But I knew her when she was very attractive. Why did she get it right from the beginning, to borrow the title of Pat Buchanan's memoir? Why was she right from the beginning when so many were wrong? When she came back from the hate, and she also met and did a profile on Joan Baez and said, these people are full of shit.
They are what? Full of shit?
Yeah, she didn't say that. She was a little bit more eloquent than I am. That's why things didn't work out. I was more terse. She was more loquacious, and yet.
I thought it was her husband who said that about.
No. Dominic, he was. He had.
No, that's not her husband.
I know. I'm testing you. That was a cognition test. Now, why was she right and Tom Wolfe right too? They needed one encounter with these people to say no sale. These people are nuts. They've got 2-year-olds or 3-year-olds on LSD.
Right. I have to say I got that right too. But I mean, I realized that the genuine hippies were just horrible. They're violent, stupid, uneducated, but some of them were fun to have sex with. So there you go. I mean, that's sort of.
I don't have another response to that.
That's sort of how I measured things in those days. Now I've become a solid citizen.
I love your honesty. I really do.
No, I mean, I think
best drugs you did in the 60s.
Well, Quaaludes were by far the best. By far the best. But
yes, Ludes is a great book. I cried at the end. I'm not kidding, because and now
sad.
Yeah, we're going back at least 9 years at least. I have the hardcover. I remember the narrator who I think paid for the headstone, the unveiling of the Jewish headstone. And he's was the character's name Lenny, and he's buried in Santa Cruz. in the novel?
Then it's a very good question. The main character is named Lenny Brown, and I do not remember where he's buried, but I think it was Santa Cruz. Just thinking about it makes me cry because it is based on a true story of a
I
couple
know.
too, and just thinking about them makes me cry.
By the way, he did ask a question. So what were the big drugs?
Sure. I beg your pardon.
What were the big drugs?
Well, ludes were great. I have never had LSD. Somebody slipped me PCP at a rock concert
At a Bob Dylan show.
Bob Dylan.
Angel dust.
Angel dust. It was horrible. It made me crazy. We had to call an ambulance for my wife and take her to the psych ward. But it was the worst drug I ever had. But I would say by far was the best. But best was ludes. Second, Percodan. Percodan was great, and you could get prescriptions for all these from your doctor in those great days. Great days. Great days.
So, Louis, did that answer your question?
One other 60s question.
Yes.
Your draft designation.
I don't know what a drop designation is. Oh, a draft designation. I was first designated as student, and then when I dropped out, I was designated as I forget what it was, frankly, but I was eligible to be drafted. But then I reminded them that in 1962 I had signed up to join NROTC and had been in NROTC for several months. And then they kicked me out saying I was medically unfit because I had severe asthma as a younger person. And I had actually appealed that, and they still kicked me out. And I said to them, well, if I was unfit then, I'm surely unfit now. And they said, okay, you're right. You are unfit. And so you're not going to be drafted, which I was very happy about. I didn't want to go to Vietnam and get killed. There are people who are a lot braver than I am who did want to go and slug it out with the commies. God bless them. But I didn't want to.
Okay. And if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to Ben Stein. We're here with Ben Boychuk, the other Ben, Louis
Farrakhan,
who doesn't need to, Louis Farrakhan, who doesn't need to
from the spaceship,
who does not need to sit so close to his microphone.
Spaceship Earth.
No, I'm with Hakeem, whoever the mad scientist who created Judge Barrett's 5 children. I'm with him in the spaceship.
Okay.
Louis, I need you to back up a little bit, Louis.
Back off.
And of course, Benjamin Jeremy Stein, who lived the 60s like no other. But I want to, and we've raised this before, but I want to ask you a question because, with Ben Boychuk, sort of with comparing and contrasting the 60s to today obviously we have these protesters, but in your decade, in the decade of the 60s, you had some amazing bands writing amazing protest songs.
Yes.
And
Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Just tons of them. Dylan, everybody was doing it. You just, obviously CCR, and they were protesting through music. There seems to be a loss again of creativity in this world because there's no music.
I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more. And I mean, you and I have very different views of today's music, my friend. You are always playing music on the radio in the car when we go down to my house in the desert, and it's music I don't recognize, and some of it I like, but most of it is just awful. And but the 60s had great songs. I mean, my God, the Rolling Stones had just one great protest type song after another, just one after another. And the Beatles, people don't even remember the Beatles anymore. The Beatles walked on water, and people don't even remember the Beatles anymore.
I think in the 60s, though, you had something to there was a real protest. You had the Vietnam War. There was real
racial oppression, real not fake like we have now.
And it's almost like today where we're protesting an orange, the Orange Man. That's literally the protest. That's literally
that. You're exactly right. Things are so good now. Beautifully put, Judith. Things are so good now. Except for the unemployed and those suffering from COVID and those who are paranoid, crazy about COVID, which there's a lot of people, there isn't anywhere near as much to protest about. I myself would love to see a protest song about CNN. Breakfast song at MSNBC.
I think we should write one. I think we should write a breakfast song.
I don't know anything about writing music, but God bless you. Thank you very much.
We could write the lyrics, and Ben Boychuk, in Big Bear, I think has some sort of musical piece, could write the tune. But Ben,
I love it. Ben, could you do it?
But Ben Boychuk, let's get to
Take
you.
a shot.
Because I think you are trying to compare them both, and I see them as so. What's going on is so juxtaposed. It's totally the opposite of everything that went on in the 60s, because there is no love.
There's no love. Good point. There is no love. There is love, but it's for sale. And it's not being given out freely the way it was in the 60s. Well, that's what I observe. But I'm an old man. I mean, nobody wants to give
You're not old. You just rode hard.
Well, God bless you.
Well,
Then I have to call over to my assistant. Glenn, wake up. Please make me some more tea.
if we're going to do a cultural autopsy, so to speak, of the 60s versus the 80s, who among us would deny who among
Go ahead. Who among us?
He lost his internet.
Oh no! He sure did.
He lost his internet feed. And on that note, we will, Ben, I promised some people in attendance that they could ask you questions live. Bo, or how do you pronounce your friend's name?
I think we've got his internet feed back.
I was back. Did my question go through?
No,
it did not. Please
I said, who among us would deny the fact that Meredith Baxter Birney has fared better than Michael J. Fox?
I don't even know what to say. Isn't Michael J. Fox terribly ill?
Well, that's to my point.
And Meredith Baxter Birney is a lesbian.
Well, I don't know what to say about that either.
60s generation of love, summer of love, versus
See, you guys are making, you know what? You guys are making fun of it. It's funny. You're jealous. You're jealous. You're jealous. You're jealous. We had such
a little bit.
A little bit.
When I was talking, I have two psychiatrists, not one, but two. I can't afford either. I'm rapidly going broke. You're going to soon be seeing me doing this from a homeless shelter if I'm lucky. But I tell my shrinks about life in the 60s, and they are going tut-tut, except for one who's old enough to remember it. And I said to him, "You're jealous, right? You're jealous. That's why you're copying this attitude, motherfucker." And he said, "Yeah, I am a little jealous."
Listen. There's nobody that's listening tonight, and I've gotten to listen to Ben for 17 years, and as we drive around and he brings up lewds, and I'm sober for 22 years.
Yay!
And when he brings up certain things, it's hard not to think, "Oh, what a night, late December back in '63."
Yes.
Which is one of my favorite songs ever written. But so Lewis, now that you're back, go for it.
Go for it, sir.
Didn't he?
Tell us about the Golden State. The first time in the 60s.
Yeah.
You came out here when you could buy a house in your neighborhood for I'll give you an example. 1969, I had my former landlady. She was a nurse. She and her late partner, however you want to construe that, she was a nurse. They bought a triplex in Brentwood, $55,000.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
A nurse.
Incredible.
What was it like to come out here in the late 60s and breathe Southern California smog, but also know you could do just about anything, including kill people on the freeway?
Well, I moved out here, I'm sorry to say, a little later than that. I came out here to visit a number of times in the 60s and had a great time. But I didn't move here till 76. And when I moved here in 76, prices were still affordable. The house I live in now, I couldn't afford in a million years, but things were affordable then, and now they're not affordable. I don't know. I mean, what's really amazing is and something's going on in my neighborhood here in Beverly Hills. People are knocking down $7 million houses to build houses that are twice as big, and then they're occupied right away. It's not like they're doing it on spec. They're doing it right. They're sold right away, or else they're already sold before they're built. Things have gotten very, very expensive, and they were a lot cheaper. And we had a better time, I would say, a while ago. Things are not nowhere near as much fun. People are totally, totally crazed about money now, and the motion picture business, I think, has gotten to be very mean spirited. When I first came out here, it was really fun working in the motion picture business as a screenwriter. Now I wouldn't. I'd be terrified to even go into a studio office
Because
the people are so mean. The people are so mean. The people who work there are so tough and mean. At least that has been my experience. I could be wrong, and maybe they're nice. Maybe I'm wrong. My wife was a high studio executive, and she's very, very nice. So that could explain something.
Let's get back to
gone.
Ben, let's get back to the 60s. As somebody that watched people protest, as somebody that was part of the protests, and they were protesting so people wouldn't get killed and could be brought home from absolute insanity. And sadly, yes, we have had certain issues in this country, but that don't correlate at all to the actions that have occurred from what happened. How do you look at the looters and the rioters and the so-called protesters compared to the people in the 60s? It's almost an embarrassment.
It's a very much of an embarrassment. But look, I was never a looter. And when I see the looters, the people setting fires to businesses and setting fires to people's houses, they've tried to set fire to houses in my neighborhood here. It's the people here are in these demonstrations are very nasty, awful people. And the people in demonstrations in the 60s against the war in Vietnam and against segregation and racial oppression, they were nice people, and they believed in something real and good and decent. And today's people believe in stealing and setting fires. It's a hell of a difference between someone who is willing to lie down in front of a moving car to save the life of someone from his high school who's in the Army or the Marines, and someone who's willing to smash a window of a store and steal everything inside it that he can carry. Those are two very different people.
So Ben, somebody asked, what celebrities were you hanging out with when you moved out here?
Let's see. Let me think. There's what's his name? Bill Murray. Is that his name? Anyway.
Yeah, just Bill Murray. Yeah.
Is that his name?
Yeah, and then it's a joke. It's a joke, Lewis. Come on.
No.
You see, you don't get my jokes either, my man. Anyway, I spent quite a lot of time with your friend Joan Didion. Spent quite a lot of time with her late husband, who was a real genius, John Gregory Dunn. I spent quite a lot of time with a little bit of time with a guy named Earl McGrath, who used to have parties where he had the Rolling Stones at his house. And I used to spend a little bit of time with a guy named Bill Wyman, who is a famous musician. And let's see, what other famous people? Well, a number of people who became quite successful producers. And I won't mention their names. I used to take drugs with them, and we were all high all the time. When I became sober, I really lost an awful lot of my friends. So, but I did have a number of people as friends who were celebrities, and celebrities are not particularly interesting people to be around. None of them is as interesting as you guys on this panel are. Not even close. Not even.
I got to tell this story to the people in the audience because they'll appreciate it, because this has to do with, I think there were a 70s band, late 60s band. Ben and I are on a plane. This is about 15 years ago, let's say. Whenever the Texas one of the football teams from Texas College was in the Rose Bowl, and we're flying to Houston. Ben's speaking somewhere, and he goes, "Judah, I think that guy in front of us is in a rock band." And I look in front of us and I go, "It's Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top." And Billy Gibbons turns around to Ben Stein and he goes, "I just got to tell you, man, I'm a huge fan." And that was just one of the coolest experiences. And Ben, that day, found out more about Billy Gibbons, than Billy Gibbons did about Ben. But that was just a very surreal experience of living in the world according to Ben Stein. But Ben, I know you had another question.
No, I was going to follow up on the point about the very nice people in the 60s, because the converse of that, and if I didn't say this, Lewis would, out of those movements, and I think you can draw maybe a somewhat straight line from what we see today with Black Lives Matter and Antifa and some of the demonstrations we have, minus the love, because the love started to disappear with the emergence of the Black Panthers, which my old boss David Horowitz has written about at length, about, behind the breakfast programs and things in Oakland was a vast criminality, right? And then of course the Weather Underground.
I was a fundraiser for the Black Panthers in New Haven for their free breakfast program for poor children in a neighborhood called The Hill. And we had no idea that it was a vast criminal enterprise. We thought it was a small criminal enterprise. And these turned out to be very scary people. Yeah. And so I think there is a lineage, a pedigree from those movements that emerged really in the late 60s that decided that the nonviolence of, say, Martin Luther King Jr., that wasn't working. There need to be more what they call direct action. And so the sorts of things that you saw then that President Nixon had to contend with, we're still seeing today in the the fiery protests, the fiery but largely peaceful protests in Minneapolis and Baltimore and all over the place. Seattle, Portland.
Portland.
Well, but the groups I was involved with were demonstrating mostly against racism and against the war in Vietnam. And those people have, none of them were even remotely violent or criminal, not even remotely. And so that ended, that pedigree died when the war in Vietnam died and when segregation died. The new group protesting against a fanciful racial oppression, a completely made up imaginary racial oppression, is those have no connection with the people I demonstrated with, but indeed they do have a connection with the Black Panthers that I worked for and with, and so you're totally right about that. But those were small. The Black Panthers were a tiny little group, although everybody at Yale loved them and worshipped them. But the ones who are drawing the huge crowds to Washington for the moratorium and then the war, that they're all scattered to the winds. They're not around anymore.
Okay, Ben, Bo Riley, who's in attendance, has a question for you. Bo, go for it.
He's muted.
Oh, he's muted?
Yeah.
Let me unmute Bo.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes,
I hear you fine.
You're live.
You're
live
okay.
on Friday night with Ben Stein.
We hear you very well, sir.
All right, that's great. I wanted to let's see how it goes. Ben asked that question, and I kind of wanted to addend on to that with the MLK thing. That do you think the youth or the generation today has kind of lost the ideals of what MLK initially had? Because I mean, he had a great, his ideas were great, and I mean, do you think that they just kind of lost that idea of what he was talking about then, and then they're just kind of going off on their own little tangent now?
Yes, they've completely lost it. Martin Luther King was an idealist and a person who really believed in something bigger than himself, and really, he certainly was never in favor of looting or robbing or arson. He was a great man. He was a genuinely great man with genuinely great ideas and genuinely great ideals, and that's totally lost in today's world. Absolutely, 100% lost. Absolutely gone. And the people are rioting and doing all these terrible things in Baltimore and Minnesota and Minneapolis and Portland and Seattle. They have no connection with Martin Luther King whatsoever. If he saw them, he would weep.
Does that sorry, go ahead, Ben.
I'm sorry, and see, that's the thing too. I'm wondering, okay, because you're talking about looters and rioters, and then there's a connection, or a parallel between the 60s and now, and back then they actually had a reason for why they were doing what they were doing, or at least You know, it may not have been a perfect
Absolutely.
reason, but I mean,
Yeah,
it was
absolutely.
understandable.
And a very good,
And
very
so,
good reason.
What we have now is like we have people that are Marxist, you know, the Antifa, and I have a feeling that a lot of that is the Antifa just trying to cause as much chaos as they can in the hopes to overthrow the government and start their own little regime. I mean, does
I
that
think
make any
it's
sense?
yeah. The Antifa people, unless I have missed something, which is possible, they're just the scum of the earth. I mean,
I
I
agree.
I don't
Completely.
have anything whatsoever good to say about them. I don't know. I don't even know where they came from or who they are, except that I know that they're violent and not nice people. And I hope that they achieve some peace in their lives, but I don't think they're going to get it by being violent towards other people.
I don't think so. I think that's what they live for is hate.
Yeah, I
it
think so
seems
too.
like.
I think so too.
And Bo, thank you so much. That was a great question. If you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to Ben Stein. We're talking about the 60s. And Lewis and I share something very much in common. And people on YouTube, you know, we do live in Hollywood, so there are interesting stories, especially where we all live, because there's certain supermarkets where we all shop. But Lewis and I, our favorite book of yours is Ludes.
God bless you, sir.
And
God bless you. God bless you.
From Sunset, you know, Bo is also just an amazing book. But
God
I was at the car wash, Lewis, and James Woods was there on Palm. And I'm sitting
a good car
there,
wash. It's a very good car wash.
and great burger joint.
A great burger joint.
Great chili. And I'm sitting there and I see James Woods.
Oh, I should go there. I wonder if it's open right now. I'd like to go there right now and get some chili. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
It's and I'm sitting there and James Woods, and I said, you know, I work with Ben Stein. I work for Ben Stein, and he couldn't be nicer. And we're sitting in this car wash, and he goes, "Oh my God, the book was amazing." And just
very kind of him.
He said he goes and he starts like going, but I'm sick of this town. It's like Nazi Germany. It's like that. And he's like, it's like, and he starts raising it. It's like, it's effing Nazi Germany. It's effing Nazi Germany. And there are like 3 women there. And I'm like, it was really nice to meet you, Mr. Wood, you know, but he couldn't be nicer, Ben. And he loved Ludes.
I love him too. And I love him. I love him. He's a great actor. I love him. Love him.
And he's got, you know, balls the size of Bayonne with his.
A very impressive guy.
Coming out of the closet about, you know, and his politically speaking.
Absolutely great guy. A great guy and is an incredibly great actor.
How much of Ludes is based on you?
A lot. I really like. Well, a lot. I am the narrator in it, but I am the narrator. I never was addicted to Quaaludes, not even remotely close to addicted to Quaaludes. I liked them. I never was remotely addicted to them, not even remotely, not even close to it. But in terms of being addicted to status toys, showing off with money, I do that. I do that a lot. And it's fun to do when you've got the money. When you don't have the money, it's very scary to do.
Lewis looks like he wants to chime in a little bit. Lewis.
Hey, I'm most impressed by the fact that tonight you've said you've never looted, and yet you bring this amazing degree of verisimilitude to Ludes.
No. You see, here you go again. This could have been.
What am I, Jimmy Carter?
This could have been a better joke. It's a good joke. I like it.
We're working, Ben. We're working with him on his humor.
Okay. I've never looted. I have taken Quaaludes, and I have used Quaaludes for purposes of romance, let's say. So, but I have never looted anything, and I've never been a corporate.
For your own freedom.
Yeah.
For
what?
Ludes and romance, please don't do a Cosby on us. I'm trying to keep you out of trouble.
I never. That's okay. Now you're getting in the side. God bless you. Somebody is coaching you on making jokes. I've never used them for purposes of seduction.
It's a voice in my head.
I've never used them for purposes of seduction. I've used them for purposes of seduction. That's all. But I've not used them for purposes of seduction. I've used them for purposes when I had a girlfriend and we both wanted to be hot.
See, now I remember my question. 52 years after the murder of Martin Luther King,
Yes, I was.
In
with
what
my wife
way?
that's murdered. Yes.
In what way, if any,
Yeah.
has the FBI improved?
They've gotten far worse, and the FBI was a tool.
Great question.
Anti-integration, anti-Martin Luther King. Now they're just plain anti-Republican, and they are a tool of the Democrat Party. I mean, it's a very sad thing to say, because I'm sure there are many, many fine agents and special agents out there, but in general, it has been totally corrupted and is a disgrace to what compared to what it was, or maybe it never was what we thought it was, but it's a disgrace compared with what we thought it was. Maybe, as I say, maybe it never was that. That occurs to me. Maybe it never was.
The Bureau implored, admonished, all but begged and threatened also King to kill himself.
What? Really?
Yes, because they would, in sending the recordings of his
Him having sex.
affairs.
Yeah, he had a lot. He
was encouraged by the Bureau to commit suicide.
Yes,
he was told
I think,
clearly to kill
yeah,
himself.
I think but that's terrible. That's absolutely terrible. And he, of course, I don't think he ever even considered killing himself. In fact, I think I have read in a very fine biography of Dr. King that he had sex with 3 different women, none of them his wife, in the 24 hours before he stopped aging.
Which doesn't bother me.
It doesn't bother me at all. I think it's great.
I can tell you that he did have issues with drinking that were, if not caused by, certainly worsened by harassment by the Bureau.
I did not know that. And that's I don't doubt that the Bureau did that, and I also don't doubt that the Bureau harasses the Republican Party and the people associated with Donald Trump. And that's scary. That's very scary. It's scary. Things in terms of supervision by the government of people. These have been scary times, and the COVID times have made it much worse. The COVID times have been times when freedom really was demolished. And this gentleman who brought me my tea right on camera is a pastor of a church, and he was told he could not have meetings in his church with even as few as 10 worshipers, or the police would come in and arrest him. So that I would never have thought that would be possible in the United States of America. Never thought it would be possible, and it really is a very scary omen.
And by the way, I want to set up for future shows, because a lot of this has to do with the chronicling of Ben's life. A lot of people out there don't know, and Lewis knows this because he's been reading Ben for 40 years.
Bless you, Lewis. God bless you.
And he's read everything.
In the crib.
He's written everything you've ever written.
From the crib. From when I was in the crib.
I said I was in, and I was in the crib.
No.
And
I read you in my crib today, but when I was in the crib.
Oh, God bless you, sir. God bless you, sir.
And Ben has lived, I would say, sort of like a genius Gumpian life.
Yeah.
And I don't know what better way to put that, because you've been in places in history, and I want to tell people, you were teaching it. You taught, a lot of people watch Netflix, and we were at your house in the desert. I was in one bedroom. You were obviously far away in another. And I'm watching Mindhunter. And all of a sudden I hear Ben walking, and Mindhunter's an extremely frightening show. And Ben was at UC Santa Cruz when, Lewis, what's it, Ben, say his name, please. The
guy that's 18 feet tall who killed his whole family.
Big Ed Kemper.
Klemper or whatever.
Big Ed Kemper.
Edmund Emil Kemper.
Ben was teaching there. Ben knew Ed Kemper's mother, the one when.
Yes, she was a real bitch.
Ben has been in this remarkable amount of history, from obviously Elvis at the White House to Nixon in the White House to Michael Milken to all the your career spans so much.
God bless you, sir. God bless you.
Well, can we give him a mulligan on the mother then of all the killings?
That's a good point. Her name was Clarnell Strandberg. She was not a nice person, but I don't think she deserved to have her head chopped off and have herself stuffed in a closet by her son.
That
Sounds
seems-
like you know a lot more.
Okay,
than
just so you know,
the
just so
public
you know,
does.
Lewis, I couldn't sleep the rest of the night because there's a difference when you're watching Mindhunters and you're like, well, this is real. And then Ben walking there and telling me the whole story. It was.
But why does Ben know details of the crime that are not public knowledge?
These are public knowledge, sir, with all due respect. Sorry.
I just thought you may have
Ben,
Inculcated
just when you thought his humor,
yourself.
Ben, just when you thought his humor was getting back on track.
No. It is getting better. It is definitely getting better.
We're
Yeah.
working on his humor, and I just want to tell one quick story. Because somebody in the YouTube loves Billy Gibbons, and this is the follow-up to that story. I was at Pavilions in, what do you call it, Lewis?
There's a writer, a diarist, who calls it gay West Hollywood, which is a bit redundant.
And I'm at Pavilions, and in my peripheral, in my sight, I see a big orange beard, and this is about 2 or 3 years ago. And I go, so I walk up to him and I go, "You, Mr. Gibbons, I don't mean to bother you. You're probably not going to remember this, but I go 10 years ago. I was on a plane with you and Ben. I was with Ben Stein, and he goes, 'My God, you have a good memory.'" And I'm like, "A
That's
good memory."
true. You do.
I'm like, "But who would forget meeting Billy, the two of you meeting?" And he ends up talking to me for 30 or 40 minutes from the woman on YouTube, or the person on YouTube that brought it up. He couldn't be nicer. He was telling me about every band guy he's ever played with. And, you know, a lot of times celebrities are like hot women. People are scared, you know, they're left alone because people don't actually just talk to them and converse with them. And Ben is one of the people that's the most accessible people you will ever meet. And to people ever meet you, you find out more about them than they ever will about you.
Well, God bless you. I do like to learn about people. I think it should have been an FBI agent. Anyway, I must go now. It's
Okay,
time.
yes, but let me close it out, Ben, before you go, because I just want to tell people where they could find us. Okay, well, you ended it, but
They
that'll
can find Ben in custody in a few weeks.
that'll do it for this episode of The World According to Ben Stein. Please subscribe to our video channel if you haven't already at World According to Ben Stein on YouTube. Like us on Facebook at World According to Ben Stein, and follow us on Parler at Ben Stein. Follow me at Judah Friedman. If anybody ever wants to private message and send a comment, they could always send it my way, and I will get it to Ben. I want to thank Ben Boychuk, of course, Louis Fine, of course, and of course, Mr. Ben Stein himself.
God bless you, sir.
God
God
bless you.
bless you, gentlemen and ladies. God bless you all.
God bless.
And
Have a
God
great
bless
weekend,
America.
everybody.
And God bless America.
And we're